topic is really about how AAUW can support teen girls facing new challenges today, and who I've brought with us. And I'm really uh, pleased to be introducing Abby Hassen, who is the director of the Empowerment Center for Adolescents for the Center for the Community Reach Center in North Denver. And she has been here in Denver for about 10 years. She has received her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from the College of St. Rose in Albany, New York, and holds a Master of Arts in Clinical Counseling from Regis here in Denver. She is a dedicated and compassionate licensed professional counselor, and she primarily works with adolescents. For 4 years, she served as a vital resource to the Community College of Denver, where she provided counseling and guidance to students who were navigating academic, personal, and mental health challenges. Her passion lies in working with adolescents in crisis. And that's why I've invited her today, because I feel like she probably as much as anybody knows about the challenges that teenagers and adolescents are facing, both at school and at home and in other areas. So her dedication culminated in the opening of a new residential childcare facility through the Community Reach Center, which is called the Empowerment Center for Adolescents. Abby's proud to contribute to the mental health landscape in Colorado, offering hope and healing to adolescents and their families through her clinical expertise and her leadership in residential care. Boy, right on sync, Abby. We're right here with, so you are at the Community Reach Center. Was I correct about being North Denver?
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Cool.
Yes, the Empowerment Center is in Thornton.
Thornton, right.
Great. Well, let me just jump right into things so that we can all kind of get through this on time. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
This is a little bit of what I'm going to be going over today, just a brief overview of some mental health struggles, what we're kind of seeing today. I'll go a little bit more into my program that I run, and then just go over some of our local resources.
Thank you.
Of course, we can go over mental health statistics all day and night, but I thought this was a really great place to begin, just to talk about young people. And there's a lot of different topics, a lot of different companies and national organizations that collect this information. But I wanted to highlight this specific organization, the JED Foundation, which I really have worked with them before. And the JED Foundation is one of the leading organizations for mental health and suicide prevention with young people. They work in colleges and they work in high schools. And so when I was working with Community College of Denver, I did work very closely with JED Foundation, and they have excellent research out there. And so they do surveys of all of the organizations that work with them. They call it the Healthy Minds Study. And so they have a huge pool of data that they pull from. And I would highly recommend everyone to kind of look into the JED Foundation and their different resources and their publications. So this comes from them. And they talk about how 12.6 million people between, young adults, 18 to 25 years old, have experienced mental, behavioral, or emotional issues in the past. We know about 20% or so of teens aged 12 to 17 have had a major depressive episode within the past year, and that's from the SAMHSA organization. This is just some more facts and figures that high school students reported. 42% reported feelings of sadness or hopelessness in the past. Certainly higher for girls, for females, higher for Hispanic students, multiracial students, LGBTQ identified students, that 69% report this feeling. And then among college students specifically, 36% diagnosed with anxiety, 30% diagnosed with depression. We know during these time periods, the teenage years is such a critical period in their development. There's lots of physical changes, emotional changes, social social stressors. We know how this impacts everyone's overall just well-being, their school involvement, their future, their adulthood. And our hope is to just continue to understand this more and more so that we can help these kids just foster more resiliency in their life, have some more emotional stability, and of course, focusing on their long-term mental health needs. Um, some common stressors that I wanted to touch upon a little bit. I think this list could go on and on and on, but I really liked pulling some just different categories, things that we might not think of. You know, of course, we have the common stressors of certainly trauma, certainly substance abuse, those ones that are much more evident. But of these other things that maybe might not be more evident for us. So, like navigating their own mental health when they're on their own, when they're in college, preparing and making those choices for what does college look like for me? How do I plan for this? How do I prepare for life after high school? Maybe it's moving away or just having the ability to make decisions on my own. Um, for some folks who live in rural areas, this can be really, really difficult to they might not have access to the normal things that other people have access to when they're in rural areas. If they're student athletes, maybe they were so involved and enmeshed with their sport that they played that they're like, that now that it's over, what next? What is next for me? If they're a first generation college student, maybe they don't have that support person to guide them to these next steps. Depending on their cultural background, these are kind of the next couple categories, different cultural backgrounds and cultural identities. And then over here, we have a little bit more statistics about people, you know, this specifically around depression. So, how many of these kids have had major depressive episodes or with severe impairment, ages 12 to 17? So it says here about almost 20 million adolescents. This says with no major depressive episode. 4.8 million adolescents who report this major depressive episode or the 14 and a half maybe percent that have experienced a major depressive episode with this severe impairment. So just kind of some things to think about as they're navigating kind of all of these next steps that are coming up for them. Um, and then this next section right here, some common issues. So some things that kids these days that are experiencing, certainly abuse, certainly this stress with their school life, with their academics, bipolar disorder, if they've been diagnosed before, or sometimes just maybe not quite full-blown bipolar disorder, but maybe just mood disorder or mood dysregulation. They have not learned how to regulate their moods when we know that that is such a huge just developmental change in their life right now. They've got body image, eating disorders, bullying is huge, huge, huge right now, especially with social media and just online behaviors that people have access to, substance use, racism or discrimination, trauma, either currently happening or history of traumas, potential self harm, issues within their friendships, financial stressors within their family. So, all of these things really contribute to just their day to day stress and how they're able to manage these kinds of things. Um, some contributing factors. So, some things that really play a role in how young people today are experiencing their getting their emotional needs met, not met, just things that maybe they might be experiencing that contribute to how they're feeling every day and their depression. So certainly genetics, their background, early childhood experiences, and potentially if there's adverse childhood experiences. If anyone has seen this before, ACEs, a lot of times there's a lot of research and study that goes into when you work with young people, they have kind of an ACEs score, it's called. So it's a test, a measure that you can do. That's kind of a survey that says go through all these different adverse childhood experiences, and people kind of get a score at the end. So sometimes in certain assessments or evaluations, you might read high ACEs score, which just means that someone has this high, just adverse childhood experiences. That certainly is something to take into consideration when they're moving forward in their treatment. Certainly their family environment. Um, so their mental health, just their outlook. So do they perceive things to be going well, not going well? Are things improving? Are things worsening? Do they have just how's their positive outlook on life? Certainly any diagnosed mental illness, their willingness to seek help, their different coping skills, kind of some people just in in their own sorry, I'm just reading this question here. Yes, within their own kind of world, they have maybe access to certain coping skills, but I think to speak to this question here, what is being done to help with coping skills? This is huge. This is really one of the biggest reasons I think why anyone and everyone should seek counseling and support, because it's just increasing those coping skills. So I think there are internal coping skills. So things maybe that people, it might be their mindset of things. It might be just their way, their self-talk. Um, and then we can certainly build upon those internal coping skills. So I can work on maybe deep breathing exercises when I know I'm feeling this way. I can work on distracting myself when I know I have this really big stress going on in my life. Maybe I know my parents are fighting right now, and that's a really big stress for me. So what can I do for myself? Can I put on some music? Can I call a friend and talk to them? Can I go outside and go for a walk, take the dog out? Something that's just building more and more coping skills, which I think is really a lifelong process, coping skills, because what someone's coping skill looks like today, right now, maybe they're 14 years old, is not their same coping skills that they should be having when they're 18, 19, when they're, adult life, all those things. So this is something that should always be, people should, be learning about themselves and having a little bit of insight, hopefully with the support of a counselor if they need some, to continue to build on these coping skills. So certainly support networks. What else here? So, stressors, trauma. So bullying, we know bullying and social media is such a big thing right now. I think it's only just going to continue to get worse, and it's never going to go away. The access that kids these days have to the entire internet, literally anything that they want to access, they can access 24/7 if they want to. That can be really overwhelming, and it can also cause some really poor choices, with either being on the receiving end of bullying, the giving end of bullying, maybe without even realizing it. Um, Losing someone you know to suicide. This we see so often right now. It's happening in schools all the time, or people not only losing someone to suicide, but having friends who have had suicide attempts before, or self-interest behaviors. This is another one, this exposure to storylines in TV and shows that feature suicide. Sometimes it can just be um, just looked on as something that gets people attention, or that is a way for them to um, I don't know, just honor it in some way. And so just kind of highlights it in a way that maybe it might appear positive when it's really not. Um, and then a little bit about suicide rates. I'm sure we've all kind of heard about this stuff, but it is the second leading cause of death for teens and young adults ages 10 to 34. So certainly this goes much older. I have another statistic here from the National Institute of Mental Health that says depression is much higher in teenage girls, 2 to 3 times more higher. And um, it is the number one leading cause of death in girls ages 15 to 19 years old. And so something to take into consideration. When we're working with people, when these kids, we are constantly asking about safety. We are constantly asking about suicide and thoughts of self-harm. And certainly there's all these different factors that we have to consider when we're assessing for these kinds of things. And then to go a little bit more into, before I go into that program, I wanted to highlight a little bit more also just about teen girls. This this research that I have with the National Institute of Mental Health says 20% of teen girls have had at least one depressive episode. And so this is something really to pay attention to. I think the reason why the JED Foundation that I was speaking about earlier is so important is because sometimes families don't see it from the same perspective as schools see it. So I think it's really important to get schools involved and having lots and lots of support in their schools to hopefully address some of this when we see it. And we know that in teen girls, a lot of the symptoms might look different than in adults than maybe what we've initially learned that depression looks like. It could just be irritability or just withdrawing socially. They might have physical complaints, just more complaints about, oh, my stomach hurts, or oh, I'm not hungry today. Um, oh, I couldn't sleep really well last night, and then noticing that it's been going on maybe for a period of time. Maybe their eating habits have changed. Maybe they are engaging in self harm or just that withdraw socially, so that maybe it's just enough to kind of question it, but maybe not enough to really feel like there's much to do about it and just kind of chalking it up to, oh, well, there's just a teenager. Oh, they had a rough day, something like that. And to touch a little bit more upon social media, I think it can really cause a huge decrease in self esteem. I think just screen time in general causes kids to not really have the ability to self regulate or to build up their own coping skills. Um, Maybe they use it as a distraction that's not in a healthy way. It's a way to just remove yourself. And then the more you get caught up in, watching other people's social media videos or feeling like they have it so much better than me or they have it so much easier than me, it brings on so much comparing, which can really cause a really big breakdown in their self esteem. All right, to go a little bit more then into this, my program specifically, love to highlight the amazing work that we're doing here at Community Reach, which definitely is how I got connected to this wonderful group here, touching upon this program called the Empowerment Center for Adolescents. So we opened in January 2024. Currently, we are working with county involved youth, so youth who have been taken custody of by Department of Human Services and that need a short-term placement for a huge number of reasons. It could be behavior issues, it could be mental health needs, it could be family stressors. Maybe they had to be removed from the home because of safety concerns. Maybe there was substance use at home or domestic violence at home. We do have access to mental health services within Community Reach. We are the Adams County Community Mental Health Agency, and so we can access all Community Reach services, therapeutic groups, psychiatry. What we do with the kids when they're there is just providing daily structure, milieu, providing pro-social and supportive activities. We really work on just appropriate interactions, boundaries, incentives, getting them connected to different school, court needs, medical needs, all of those things. And we are working right now with kids ages 12 to 17 years old. And this picture here is from one of our bedrooms. When we first opened, we have 6 rooms, and each room has a huge mural on one of the walls. And so we worked with local artists to get these beautiful murals in all the bedrooms, and we can serve up to 10 kids. All right, here, and moving on, this just goes over what supports are needed. This is again from SAMHSA and JED Foundation. It just really overall is striking the point home that all these kids are saying that they have an unmet need for mental health services, where maybe they desire counseling. Only 32% received these services out of this group that they're talking about here. Schools, it says 91% of school administrators feel that the schools should make more of an effort to provide suicide prevention among students, which is one of the reasons why I love this JED Foundation so much, because they really are trying to embed themselves in high schools and colleges. And so I think that is huge, huge work. And I have never come across any other foundations that do that from that perspective. Of course, to put a resource out there specifically for Colorado, this is our crisis line. So this is available 24/7 by calling this number or texting, where you can speak to a clinician 24/7. So that's something that we always encourage people to be involved in and to call if they need to. Address a couple questions here. How many youth can be at the Empowerment Center? Are there other counties working to have a center? So currently our maximum capacity is 10 kids in our unit, and within Community Reach Center, we own the whole building. And so we definitely have the availability to expand. And our other counties working to have a center, there's varying levels of access to these centers in other counties. Just because we're located in Adams County, we're not unique to only accepting within Adams County referrals. So there is only a very small amount of these centers that exist. So the ones that are in the state, they accept from all over the state. We've even worked with out of state counties that have worked on maybe with Adams County directly to work on getting the kids back to Colorado if they, for whatever reason, they had a established connection here, and then we were able to work with them in that way. So even though we're located in Adams County, we're not only serving Adams County. And then another question, is the JED Foundation working with Aurora Public Schools? I don't know the answer, but they list on their website exactly the schools that they are working with. So I would highly encourage you to visit their website, and then you can see a list of who they are currently working with. I worked with them specifically through Community College of Denver. So I was on the college side of their programming when I worked with them. So I don't know the complete ins and out details of their high school program. All right. Another really important Colorado resource that I wanted to share as well is this I Matter. This was something that was passed, I don't remember my timeline exactly, maybe a year ago, maybe within the past year, pretty recently, where the state is offering 6 free counseling sessions to kids. So This gives you how to access them. It says if you're 11 or younger, you need to have a parent fill it out with you, which leads me to believe that if you're 12 and up, that you could do this completely on your own. So this is an amazing resource that we just want to share with everyone as much as we possibly can. And these are some other resources. I'm just being aware of the time because I know you guys are wrapping it up. So if anyone has any other questions, I would be happy to answer.
Um, I don't see another one. Oh, yep, I do see a quick one in Sue Ryden mentions that Daphne Michelson was involved in that jet. But I just want to point out that we're not typically, AAUW is not really in the mental health world too much, Abby. And I'm just wondering if you have, we're interested in girls going on to higher education and being successful and like that. How could we work together with Community Reach or other organizations in this arena?
Um, Great question. I guess you would probably have to decide what exactly does that look like. So where would you want to meet them? So that maybe tells me something within the high school ages
Yeah,
to
yeah.
support them, with that transition into college. So I don't know. I think libraries always have lots and lots of resources where maybe they have presenters or they can put on seminars or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Libraries is what I think of, possibly schools directly with a school, reaching out to a school counselor or something like that. Um, a school counseling group that might,
So
be
the
willing to
school might be a
them
focal point
for
of
education.
our connection. Do you see a difference between the 11 to say 14-year-old teenage years or and then the 15 to say, is that a split with, it's kind of like in my views, middle school and high school are a little bit different. Would you say that those are different groups?
Definitely. I would
Yeah,
say that's lots of different things going on. I think the younger kids, 11, 12, might have they sometimes from my perspective can appear like maybe they have a lot more mental health needs. Maybe they're still trying to figure out like what do I do with this feeling that I'm having? They might
yeah.
be, if they're not doing well, if it's showing as a parent that they are in need of support, it might be more acting out, it might be more behavioral concerns. For those younger kids, there might be violent or, you know, violent throwing things or violent with their family or something like that versus the older kids that might be maybe making riskier choices or just completely withdrawing a lot more.
I hear you. Well, I think we have a way to go to explore this avenue, but because our mission is to work for equity for women and girls, I thought, well, here's an area of girl development that we haven't really addressed.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much. I know I love this perspective. I think it definitely brings something unique to the group that it sounds like you haven't focused on yet before.
Right, right. I do have a question too. Audrey asks, can we get access to the statistics on your PowerPoint? And I
Sure,
was
I
thinking,
shared some of these links, so I'm happy to
oh,
share
cool.
these in an email to you, and then if you want to send them out to the group.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you
Yeah,
would send it to me, since you have my email,
sure.
then I could be
Yes.
the conduit for any of these. Any other questions from the group, from the audience? We are coming up. We're at 12 o'clock. I wanted to be respective of your time. Carolyn or Jill, is there anything further that you want to say? I want to thank Abby for being with us today.